Lifesaving for the overwhelmed soul. Two summers ago, we bought one of those blow-up dinghies from Lidl, the cheap yokes, and we had the cousins and the kids out in it, and we were out in a beautiful spot near Glencolmkill, Silver Strand, the Horseshoe Beach, beautiful setting, and we had them out two or three at a time inside this dinghy, and yet we discovered that the tide was so strong, the dinghy was in danger of going out to sea, so I had to nip up to the car and I got two ratchet straps. I anchored the dinghy to my body and I dragged the dinghy up and down the shoreline. Bet you're glad you weren't in that boat that day. I heard a helpful phrase recently. We are not all in the same boat, but we are all in the same storm. And the idea that we need to support one another and not presume we know what other people are going through because everyone's circumstances are unique and different. And I want to read a bit of a psalm that I think really helps us here. And that the thought is really just that of sinking deep. And I think these words really sum up a nation, in fact, even a globe. And it just expresses some of that inner turmoil that threatens to overwhelm us. Listen to these words from David. Save me, O God, for the waters have come up to my neck. I sink in the miry depths, where there is no foothold. I have come into the deep waters. The floods engulf me. I am worn out calling for help. My throat is parched. We all face different combinations of overwhelming circumstances, but it hits us like wave after wave that engulfs us. It sounds like a bad surf wipeout or being shipwrecked, a man overboard, every boat. Sounds like this want to make us want to say thank you, don't they, to the RNLA, the lifeboat people, for all the good work that they do. It's this sinking feeling that threatens to overwhelm us, that drains us emotionally, that makes it hard to breathe. For David, it was being mocked and being misunderstood by his enemies. For you and me, in your boat and mine, there's a different blend of causes, from cabin fever to grief, from homeschooling tension to fear of infection, from economic doom to deep, suffocating loneliness, or maybe it's frontline fatigue to devastating sickness, or from an exhausted mother to a frustrated child. Whatever your boat looks like, however frightening or disorientating it may be, know too that we can call out urgently to that same God and desperately ask for God to rescue us. Perhaps God was the first place you ran to for help, but you've given up. Or perhaps God is the last place you run to for help, as pride won't allow you. I think partly the psalmist here gives us permission to lament, to not be too hard on ourselves, to tell God how it is, what we're really going through. Perhaps the biggest unwanted blessing of this crisis may be that God is persistently weaning us off our self-reliance. It cuts our ego to pieces, it brings us down a peg or two, but maybe, just maybe, we will look back on this time with joy because of the blessings that humility have brought. A drowning man will call for help. Salvation begins when our desperate need for God is recognized and we reach out for him and we join with the psalmist's plea, save me, O God. If this kind of disorientating is your living nightmare, for whatever reason, know that Jesus suffered worse before you and for you. Amy Carmichael was a missionary in India and set up orphanages and so on. And she said this, our waters are shallow because his are deep. It's because he has been overwhelmed as he hung on that cruel tree, the cross, that we know he can bring our pain to God. He can identify with what we're going through. He lived through it. The cross assures us that he cares. And the ultimate salvation that we need. Jesus' name literally means that he will save his people from their sins. Jesus' death and resurrection guarantee that he will hear our plea for rescue and that he has the power to change our lives and our circumstances. And then finally, we have to look back thankfully as the rescued ones. One day, we will look back on this time. We now have a tentative roadmap to exit lockdown. There's a tiny, tiny glint of light at the end of a very bumpy, long tunnel. How we respond to God now, may I suggest, will determine how we look back on the biggest unsettling of normal life in 50 years. Psalm 40, 1-3 would be a beautiful way to look back on lockdown 2020. Listen to these amazing words. I waited patiently for the Lord. He turned to me and heard my cry. He lifted me out of the slimy pit, out of the mud and the mire. He set my feet on a rock and gave me a firm place to stand. May we learn to patiently trust in God just like Jeremiah did, to lift us out from the miry clay and trust Him to place us on firm ground, on solid rock. And then he continues, verse 3, He put a new song on my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in Him. Many people will fear Him too as they hear our songs of victory. May we too learn to sing a new song, a fresh stirring of praise welling up from inside our hearts to God. May I suggest there is light at the end of the tunnel. There is hope for the overwhelmed soul. So let's cry out urgently to God now. Let's wait patiently for the Lord tomorrow. And may we yet sing a new song to our God.